This one's going to be a banger today. I've had several friends tell me you need to know this guy, and I kept hearing it from people I trust. People don't say that about everyone, and trust me, I don't even like everyone. He's been in the inner sanctum with some of the holiest men on the planet. He's an artist, a philosopher, one of those guys you can sit with anyone, the broken especially, the powerful, the lost, the found. He's been around the freaking block. He has the T-shirt. He lost it all. And here's what really got me. God is still at work doing incredible things with him. It's huge. He wrote something that I haven't been able to shake. And he said, freedom rarely arrives all at once. It comes in pieces. It's not just a clever line. It's a man who's learned it. And he's bled out. He's seen death. He's lived to tell the story. I'm just really pumped and honored to have him here. It's an honor to have Tullian on the show today. He's got a book coming out June 2nd, Fragments of Freedom. We're going to dig into that. Gentlemen, this is going to be something that you want to get all your ears and all your sensories invested into, as well as in the show notes. The stuff that he has, if you're not listening already to what he has, it's incredible. And I think as we go down this trail, you're going to realize that this isn't just another dude. And you know that I don't just put anybody on here. They've got to be significant. They got to have something that's going to be of value, and they got to be able to bleed. And so those of you that are just tuning in, this is new for you. There's always two things that you got to do. Number one is subscribe on Apple and follow on Spotify. And you're like, hey, this isn't about me. Look, I'm going to rebuild and transform a million divorced dads. I cannot do it alone. But when you click two buttons, you literally send the show to a bunch of dads who are worse off than you, probably have a gun on the table or whatever else is going on. That's what you can do to help another dad right now. So I want to start this off. I want to throw Tullian on the spot, give something easy. And you say you lead the ragamuffin of the sanctuary there in Jupiter. What does that title actually mean, brother?
It's hard for me to refer to myself as a pastor, even though that's functionally what I am. And the reason it's hard for me to do that is not because I am not pastoral. I think I am. As you mentioned in your introduction, I have bled and I have died 1,000 deaths, many of them at my own hand. And so I have a solidarity with broken people. I have an empathy with people, and in that sense, I'm pastoral. But the word pastor tends to carry so much baggage and earned or unearned, well deserved or not well deserved. That's irrelevant to me. The fact of the matter is, it does. When people find out that I'm a pastor, they start editing themselves a little bit. And so I had to identify myself in some way. And so I was just sitting there one day. I'm like, what I really am is kind of the lead ragamuffin of this organization called the Sanctuary, which we affectionately refer to as a recovery place masquerading as a church. My wife, Stacy, and I have been in Jupiter, Florida now since the spring of 2019. She grew up in Texas. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. We were married in August of 2016. Sorry. I was going to say 2016. So we're nearing our 10th anniversary. And we moved here in the spring of 2019 at the request of a group of people to start a church. And when they first approached me, I was categorically not interested. I had been a pastor before, and when my life came apart, it was like a ghost town. And so I was bound and determined never to entrust my life or my livelihood into the hands of church people again, Christian people again, religious people again. So I was very reluctant. Over the course of a couple months, God made it very, very clear that this is exactly where he wanted us. And so we've been at it, man. And it's a different kind of place. I mean, it's raw, it's real. It feels probably a little bit more in vibe like AA meeting than it does a typical church. And I lead that way. I lead with my own vulnerability. I lead with my own weakness. I lead with my own confessions. And that can deter a lot of religious people from coming, but it also attracts a lot of people who are at rock bottom or who have been at rock bottom and who are dying to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jupiter, Florida. We live in paradise. I absolutely love it here. We love it here. My wife has two boys. They live in Texas. They're older. All of our kids are grown. They're older. Cole and Hunter. Cole lives in Austin, and Hunter lives just south of Houston. And then my three kids live down here.
Yeah.
I have a son, Gabe, who's 31, a son, Nate, who's 29, and a daughter, Jenna, who's 24. And they all live within, one of my daughter lives 20 minutes from here, and my middle son lives the furthest away from me, but it's still only like 45 minutes. So family's here, friends are here, paradise is here, beaches are here,
Yeah.
palm trees are here.
Living the dream. Living the dream.
Yeah,
Let me
we're
let me
excited
throw
to be doing
this. Let me throw this at you, dude. This is one of how I first kind of came across from you. And this is where most people are going to be. And when I say inner sanctum, and with the different people that I've been around and you've been around, that's why I think, and especially what you just said with being at church and a ghost town, and absolutely like, where's the love, right? So I do want to ask this because I think this is something that people would very easily either make an excuse about, or it's something that they would say, oh, that's why, he is what he is. Walk us through your grandfather.
Yes, Daddy Bill. So not by my own choice, but by the grace of God,
Yeah.
was born into religious royalty.
Yes.
My maternal grandfather was Billy Graham. Interestingly, you ask anybody 45 and younger who he is, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Unless you grew up in religious settings. Nobody
Well,
knows,
but my audience is 35 plus, 40s. These are guys that
they might know.
Yeah,
they might know. So my granddad, was world famous, not just in the religious world, but in the non-religious world too. Personal counselor and confidant to every president from Harry Truman to Barack Obama. Was a world leader in many ways, preached the gospel to more people than anyone in history. A lot of that through television and radio, but often, obviously in person, millions and millions of people over his career in person. He's my mom's dad. So the reason my last name isn't Graham is because it's my maternal grandfather, not my paternal grandfather. He was an amazing guy. He died in February of 2018.
What kind of pressure did that put on you?
People have asked me that over the years, and I never felt pressure from outside of myself. So, for example, I never felt pressure from my grandparents or even my parents to be a certain way because of who we were, because we're out there representing the family name. None of that stuff.
Wow.
Thank God. There was no pressure to, believe in God because of who my granddad was. There was none of that. They were incredibly down to earth, real, raw. My grandparents were two of my closest friends when they were alive. They were amazingly gracious. They were outrageously merciful. They were so for us. They were incredibly supportive of all their grandchildren and children in terms of whatever it was they wanted to do with their lives. There was no pressure to go into ministry or anything like that. I think the pressure I did feel, and I did a lot of reflecting on this when I was writing my memoir a couple of years ago. I think because I grew up in the family that I grew up in, and I saw global impact from the front row. There was probably something in me from the time I was small that thought, I want more of this. This is amazing. Like once you've been exposed to sort of that level of global impact, it gets in your veins, and at least it did for me. And I wasn't reflective on that when I was young, only as I got older. But I think something probably in my formative years, I took all of that, my growing up and what I was exposed to, and really felt like I want to do something big. I want to do something special. I want to do something global also. And because I was young and not self-aware and not really reflective in my early years of ministry, and I didn't take the straight road into ministry either. I was the black sheep of my family, got kicked out of my house at 16, dropped out of school at 16, middle of 7 kids.
Yeah.
I was definitely the black sheep. But in my early 20s, when I came back to God, really, my life had bottomed out, and my relationship with God at that point really became something real to me. I kind of knew right away what I wanted to do,
Wow.
and I think a lot of what was motivating me at the time was a real desire to tell the world about this amazingly gracious God who tracks down runners like me.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be good and clean to go to God. You just have to be desperate and down to come to
Yeah.
God. That God finds people on the bathroom floor. And I grew up in church settings where that wasn't always the impression of God that was given. And so I did feel a real desire, a real burden to share that with the world. But underneath all of that, of course, is a hell of a lot of youthful ambition. And some of that ambition, no doubt, was fueled by what I had experienced
Yeah.
growing up in the family I grew up in. So I think I probably, they were authors and they were speakers, members of my family. It wasn't just my grandparents. My mom wrote a number of books. I was able to see, I grew up watching my mom on Good Morning America and, blah, blah, blah. So that sort of gets into your system a little bit without you even knowing it. And I think I probably felt like I have both the desire and the responsibility to also speak and to also write books and to also do something big and all of that stuff. So again, that was not something that was premeditated. It wasn't something that I thought a lot about or reflected on as it was happening. But as I've gotten older and people have asked me that question, I've had to really think about it and go, I never felt pressure from outside. I never felt pressure from my family. Now, I did feel a little bit of pressure from the outside in terms of I grew up going to Christian schools, and anytime
Yeah.
I would get in trouble, sometimes the teacher would say, we expect more out of you than this and blah, blah, blah. That typically went in one ear and out the other. So there were people on the outside who put some pressure on me to be better,
Yeah.
cleaner, whatever. But none of that came from my family. The pressure I did feel was self-imposed.
Yeah.
I have to do something big. I have to, and some of that, as I've gotten older and you reflect on it more and your level of self-awareness gets higher, you start realizing some of that was just a cry for validation. Some of
Yeah.
that was just a narcissistic cry for attention and approval.
Yeah.
None of us operate with pure motives ever. And so I'm sure there were good motives mixed in with all of those bad motives. It was a mixed bag all
Yeah.
along, as it is now. But yeah, I'm very grateful to say, honestly, that I never felt any pressure from anyone in my family to be a certain way or to do things or to pursue things. And that's not the story of everybody who grows up in famous families, but it is my story, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. That's why I was curious, and obviously with that weight and that types of stuff, and then with obviously this book that you have, this Fragments of Freedom, which is epic and a great write, read, and I think a full experience that we'll dig into in a few moments. I do want. I tell guys when they first start to go through divorce, it's like a shock. It was like a shotgun to my chest. And I want to just go for a second there for you.
Yeah.
What was that darkest moment for you? Walk us through just that space, because there's usually 3 types of guys listening. There's a guy that's in it. There's a guy that's maybe a year or 2 out of it. And there's another guy that feels like they're about to walk into this thing.
Yeah.
And I want to give them, and I share, as deep as much as I can, because I think that in the blood is where guys start to say, holy smokes, these are real dudes that actually want to help. So, and I know you, brother, like you have bled. So walk us through that for a moment. I love these guys to hear it.
Yeah, man. So I was at the top of my game going into 2014, really 2015 also, pastoring a massive, famous church in my hometown of Fort Lauderdale, writing a book a year.
Wow.
A handful of those were bestsellers, was on TV every week, on the radio every day, traveling around the country, speaking at all the conferences and churches and all that stuff. Was a rising evangelical golden boy, really.
Yeah.
And all of that came crashing down in the spring of 2015 when I cheated on my first wife. And there was infidelity on both sides. I don't talk about the infidelity on her part publicly much at all because it can sound like blame shifting.
I agree.
Tried that.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
I tried that when our marriage first started to fall apart and my sin and my infidelity was exposed.
Yeah.
No one knew about hers, but when the Washington Post or one of those newspapers called and asked me for a statement, I was ready, willing, and desirous to tell the world that it's not just me, dude. It was her too. And I regret with all of my being doing that. I was angry. I was hurt. I was frustrated. I was losing my life in front of my eyes. And I just wanted to take someone down with me. So I've been on the receiving. I've been the betrayer.
Yeah.
I've been betrayed. I know what it feels like on both sides. I think when all of that happened in the spring of 2015 and it all went public, I lost everything overnight. I mean, publishers canceled my contracts. I had like 14 speaking engagements lined up for the summer and fall, all canceled within 48 hours. I was, of course, I lost my job. But as devastating as that was, so my opportunities were now gone. My livelihood was now gone. My reputation was now gone. My credibility was now gone. And it was broadcast for the world to see. I mean, it was reported in every major news source, not just religious, but all the non-religious news sources, all the secular ones. That doesn't even count the social media chatter and the blogosphere. I mean, it was just like everybody knew. And as painful as that was, the thing that was more painful than anything was watching my marriage and my family crumble. Like the professional stuff, losing that was painful, but it doesn't even come close to the pain that accompanied the personal loss.
Yeah.
And the guilt and the shame and the regret that accompanied that. I would, regardless of what my first wife did, I was supposed to be the one to hold it all together.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be the anchor for my kids. And I failed. I broke the hearts of people that I love. And I'll never forget, this was, I think, probably the most painful moment. I'll never forget sitting my 3 kids down. At the time, Gabe was 20, Nate was 18, and Jenna was 13. Gabe had just gotten married and had just had his first child. So all of them were in fragile seasons of life. Gabe just married, brand new dad. Nate was just graduated, going off to college. Jenna was entering high school. So all of them were in these transitional periods. And I just nuked the foundation that they had, the support system that they had. And then because it was so public and all of our drama played out publicly, the pressure that it put on them, the embarrassment that it brought to them and all of that stuff. So I'll never forget sitting down on a Friday afternoon. I knew the news was going public on that Sunday. And I sat my 3 kids down on a Friday afternoon and told them what I had done. And their reactions, even though it's now been, 11 years ago now, feel like they happened 5 minutes ago. I'll never forget what my oldest son said. I'll never forget what my middle son didn't say. And I'll never forget what my daughter said. I could repeat verbatim what they said to me in that moment. They don't even remember what they said because I've told them. What you said in that moment. They have no recollection of it.
Absolute shock.
But just watching, they were already going through so much because their mother and I, as a result of her known fidelity, but my, up until that point, unknown infidelity, they were already going through hell in many
Yeah.
ways, and I was the straw that broke the camel's back of my family. And I think, it wasn't just like a few conversations and everything was better. I mean, it took years and years. Now, my kids, we were super close to begin with. We remained super close
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. They're three of my best friends in the world today. Um, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because I know there are a lot of guys out there for whom that is not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to guys all the time who have no relationship with their kids because of their own infidelity or because of the breakup of their marriage or whatever the case may be. I never had to experience that. Doesn't mean we didn't have the hard conversations
Yeah.
and talk about the hard and embarrassing things, but we remained close, thank God.
Did you guys have like a 50-50 split? Were you now swapping kids? Any of that because of
No,
their
because my kids
ages?
were grown. They were my two boys were out of the house at that point.
So just the
So there was
youngest?
no. Yeah, the youngest was, and that was easy because she was going into high school. She could pretty much make her own decisions. It was, I
Yeah.
mean, there may have been something formal in writing,
Yeah.
in the divorce decree, but I mean, their mom and I,
What
my
about
daughter was
you?
old enough.
What about you going into an empty house?
Okay, now you're talking. So I moved from Fort Lauderdale to Orlando, uh,
Gorgeous.
to get out of the way. Really, I mean, there was
Yeah.
shrapnel everywhere,
Yeah.
and in order for me to heal, I needed to get out of the war zone. So I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment
Wow.
out of a beautiful home that my first wife and I had bought just 2 years earlier, renovated the whole thing. This was going to be the home where every Christmas from now until the day we die and all of our kids and grandkids, this was going to be the gathering place. And I was now moving into, with a handful of boxes and a couple pieces of furniture, into a blank 2-bedroom apartment in Orlando. And I'll never forget walking up the stairs that first day that I was moving in with a couple boxes in my hand and a U-Haul truck downstairs with a couple of my buddies helping me carry stuff. And I walk into that apartment, dude, which was not designed for me. It was designed for anybody. I wasn't the first person that was going to live there. I knew I wouldn't be the last person that was going to live there. And uh, it just sort of hit me. Like, man, I mean, this is so empty. It's a shell. It's so generic, and I'm all alone. And I've done this to me. No one else did this to me. I did this to me. Waking up every morning in that blank apartment by myself, reaching for my phone. This was a big deal. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but I'd reach for my phone every morning for years. And by the time I woke up, there's already 20 texts, 20 emails, people needing things, people needing me to weigh in on things, people wanting me to do things, whatever. I felt like a wanted guy, a guy with a purpose. I mean, I was desired and I was needed and all that stuff. And I'll never forget just the quiet, man. I mean, it was just like, nobody was texting and asking for anything. Nobody was calling and inviting me to come speak somewhere. I didn't have emails from people needing me to make a decision that day about some important thing or whatever. That began, that was in the fall of 2015 when I moved to Orlando, early fall, late summer, early fall, like end of August, beginning of September 2015. And that really was the start of my deconstruction. And I know that word gets thrown around. I'm not talking about theological deconstruction.
Yeah.
I'm talking about existential deconstruction, where I had to come to terms with the fact that everything I had basically built my identity on was now gone. And I tell people all the time, you really don't know what it is you depend on to make life worth living until it's gone. And during that extended season, that went on for a few years, a lot of help, a lot of recovery, a lot of therapy. But during that time of deconstruction, I was undergoing a massive identity crisis for that reason. I wasn't just experiencing grief and regret and shame and guilt and sadness. I was experiencing a massive identity crisis because, unbeknownst to me, I had really located my worth and my value and my security and my significance in all of the things and in all of the people that I had lost.
Yeah.
And that was flattening to
What did
me.
it sound like? What did it sound
I-
like? Like mentally, what did you hear?
Hopelessness. Your best days are behind you. You'll never be happy the way you were before again. You're not useful anymore in the ways that you used to be useful. You'll never write again. You'll never speak again. You'll never do what you were built for again. I felt like a pariah because I had been bombarded with so much rejection during that time. I was fearful of being rejected by people who didn't even know me. I was scared to get to know people. I was
Mm.
scared to, dude, I've always been the guy who feels comfortable in his own skin for the most part, can walk into a room and feel confident in who I am. I didn't even want to leave the house. I didn't want to go to a restaurant. It was just, it had been a long, long time, probably in my awkward early teenage years was the last time I felt like that.
Mm.
But man, I mean, I just did not, confidence gone, any sort of hope or sense of purpose gone. I would say that at that point, hopelessness was probably the dominant feeling, experience, just this idea that at the time I was 42 years old and thinking my life is over. I'm
Mm.
still alive, but I'm not living, and there's no promise of new life. Like and some people would come around me and say things like, dude, you're not done. They would say things like, if you're not dead, God's not done. And I mean, I heard that stuff and I understood their sort of their intentions behind it, but I wasn't believing any of that horse shit. I mean,
Yeah.
none of it. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, my life is, you don't get it. You don't fall from as high as I did, as publicly as I did, and recover from this. I
Yeah.
mean, the religious industry forgives a lot of things, but adultery is the stain that sticks, and and of course they obsess over the sex of it all. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's one whole other subject about the misnomer of why men and or women commit adultery. If women do it, it's because they're trying to fill an emotional void. If men do it, it's because they're trying to fill a physical void. That's just, those caricatures don't play out in
Yeah.
reality across the board. And that wasn't the deal for me. It wasn't like I had a sex problem and that was my issue. There was a lot of other issues that were way deeper than that. But I mean, that's just not the kind of thing
What did
that.
you listen to in that time?
uh, you mean in terms of the voices in my head or the
Well, no,
people or?
no, like music.
Oh, geez,
I'm
man.
curious, how did that play into where you were at, or you probably, was there some type of like filter? You're like, shoot, I can't listen to this. It's just going to take me even further down the hole.
Yeah, is it going to trigger me?
Yeah.
I will tell you what I didn't listen to.
Okay.
Nothing Christian, nothing worshipful, nothing like that. I mean, I've
Yeah.
got my own issues with that kind of music
Yeah,
anyway.
I know.
But I didn't listen to any of that.
Yeah.
Partly because I don't like that kind of music, but the other part is because some of it's triggering. Anything, dude, I couldn't read my Bible
Mm.
for probably 18 months to 2 years because
Yeah.
reading my Bible was a trigger for me because I had always preached sermons that were based on the Bible. So just opening my Bible was a trigger for me. It was a reminder of what
Wow.
I had lost and what I had squandered. So I was very, very aware of what my triggers were at
Yeah.
that time. And music, I mean, I've always been, since 19, I like a variety of genres of music, but I've always been an electronic music fan, house music fan,
Yeah.
always growing up in South Florida near Miami, like I did. That was kind of the soundtrack of our culture. So
Yeah.
I grew up with that, fell in love with that. The whole rave scene of the early
Yeah.
90s
Yeah.
in South Florida, it was like a needle in my arm. And I did listen to a lot of that stuff during that time. And for the listeners who have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about noise. I'm talking about like melodic house music,
Yeah.
electronic music that has emotional intelligence to it. Ambient type stuff that's got a beat. So yeah, I listened to a lot of that, but I'm sure music helped me during that time, but I didn't listen to music in order to help me. It was
Did you
just something
find
I like to do.
did you find the quiet to be disturbing and you would play music?
Um,
Because for
if
me,
I did, I don't have any real
okay.
recollection of that. I don't feel like I just had music on all the time because I didn't want to face what was the quiet inside
Yeah.
of me,
Yeah.
or to drown out the noise that was inside of me. I didn't feel like that. I've always listened to music. I grew up around music. I've always had music on
Yeah.
around me. So I'm sure that never tapered off, but that was true before all of that happened
Yeah.
also. So I didn't really, I'm sure music did serve as an escape for me during that time, but I probably wasn't conscious of it or was aware of it.
Yeah. So you're in this apartment by yourself, got a couple boxes. You went from this beautiful spot, highest of the highs, like we said in the beginning, almost to like there was something that was inside of you of global and this reach and this you and it was happening. It was
It
literally
was
real time.
happening.
It was
Right.
literally happening. And then,
Yeah.
that gets crumbled and that goes down. And now you're in this place where you're at this, apartment, whatever. And what was the best piece of advice in that moment that you got that was actually helpful at that time?
So I have a good friend named Paul Zoll, who is a retired Episcopalian priest, the smartest person I've ever met, and I've been around some smart people. Paul is a theological psychologist par
Wow.
excellence, or
Wow.
you could call him a psychological theologian. Either one. No one understands the human condition better than Paul Zoll. Carl Jung comes close, but Paul Zoll takes the cake for me. And he was my friend before I
Wow.
crashed, and he was my friend during the crash, and he remains my friend today. He was my go to. He was the guy who didn't blink, he was the guy who didn't flinch. I lost a lot of people during that season of my life who I thought were my friends. And it dawned on me that you don't really know who your friends are when you're at the top because you have
Yeah.
so much to offer. But when you're at the bottom and all you have to offer people is liability and leprosy, you find out pretty quickly you don't have nearly as many friends as you thought you had. But Paul Zoll was a friend that stuck closer than a brother.
Wow.
And he gave me lots of advice. He is very well known for saying that unsolicited advice is rarely helpful.
Yes.
It's typically always resisted. But I wanted his advice. I solicited his advice and his counsel, so he was ready to give it to me, and he did. And when I would call him or sit with him, and I would just gut myself. I
Mm.
mean, I was wearing all of my emotions on my sleeve. I was cussing and spitting and crying and venting and, just getting all of the stuff that was in me out. And Paul would listen. He might ask me a couple clarification questions. He never interrupted me. He would listen, listen, listen. And then when I was finished, before he gave me any of his thoughts, he would always say, Tullian, that's good. Stick with that. And I didn't really know what he meant at the time until he kept doing it. And now I know exactly what he meant. It was almost like, look, there is a lot of freedom to be found at the bottom of things. And there's a lot to learn about yourself and about God when
Mm.
you're at the bottom. Don't be too quick to look for an exit. Stick with that. The bathroom floor is not the worst place you can be. There is a lot. If you stick with that and you allow it to have the impact that it's supposed to have, if you face yourself in ways that you never have, if you learn to get comfortable with just how uncomfortable your insides feel right now, that's the place where freedom is birthed.
How
That
did
is the
how did
place
you
where
do
you
that?
kicking and screaming. I mean, there was really I heard what he said. I didn't.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm a scrapper, man. Like I'm feisty. I'm not a good patient at all. I am not a compliant patient. Um, and I would love to be able to tell people, look, man, this is where I was 11 years ago. Here's where I am now. My life on the outside is not nearly as messy as life on the outside was back then, but my life on the inside is still pretty messy, just like it was back then. The difference is now I know it. Now I admit it. Now I can see it. Now
Mm.
my level of self-awareness is probably the greatest measure of my growth. Not that I'm a good guy now. It's just that I'm probably more willing to admit that I'm a mess now than I was before. And I think for me, as much as I would love to give people some steps in terms of what to do, and there are a couple of things, but man, it was like God put me. He sequestered me. He secluded me. It's like God took me away in a straitjacket and put me on an operating table and just started cutting. I didn't. It's almost like I never even felt like I had the choice.
Mm.
That's how it felt at the time. Like God was doing His work for me in spite of me. And because if it was just a matter of, okay, things have gone south, I need to make things right. Here's what I need to do. I wasn't thinking that clearly. When somebody has experienced that kind of catastrophic trauma, and most of it at your own hand, you're not thinking clearly. You're not sort of charting out a course. You're
No.
basically banking on God to carry you kicking and screaming from where you are to where you need to be. And that's very much my story. That's why I haven't written a how-to book
Mm-hmm.
as a result of this whole experience, because I don't know how to. I really don't. I mean, I'm grateful for the few people that God surrounded me with. During in August of 2016, I married my now wife Stacy.
Yeah.
We met almost immediately after everything fell apart with me, and it started off as a friendship, and she was a great sounding board for me. She lived far away. She was in tech. We didn't know each other before this. She knew me because of books that I had written and things like that, but I didn't know her. And we got to know each other, became friends, and God gave me her. She was a real steady for me during that
Mm.
season. Paul Zoll was one of those guys. I had a counselor that was incredibly helpful, a couple of friends, my kids. But for the most part, man, besides some of the people that God put around me, it wasn't like I was reading books on how to recover from a fallen life and a broken marriage. It's not like I was praying. My prayers in those days consisted of lots of 4-letter words directed God's way. That was my prayers were so radically unsanitized. They still are a lot of the time. But they were so radically unsanitized. I was free falling and screaming all the way down with clenched fists
Yeah.
and snarls. And I was pissed, man, because I thought, man, I have helped people in my profession. I have helped people who screwed up way worse than I did. And they haven't suffered, at least on the outside, nearly as much. They didn't lose their jobs. They didn't
Yeah.
lose all their opportunities. They didn't lose any hope for
Your
a future.
network.
I did. All of it
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And
What?
they didn't have to do. So I would complain, and the fact that I am where I am today is a miracle. It's not a result of my resilience or my ingenuity or my wisdom. It
Yeah.
is a miracle, plain and simple.
What did forgiveness look like for you?
Man, I would say that first and foremost, it looked like my 3 kids. They just never bat an eye. They were people who were, I would argue, probably altered and hurt the most. And they never blinked. They never flinched. They cried. They yelled at me. We had the conversations, but they never flinched. They were a picture of God's forgiveness to me. They were a picture of God's grace. They were a picture of God's mercy. It was like embodied grace, embodied mercy, embodied forgiveness. And man, did I make my confessions to them. I mean, they were the first three people that I desperately wanted to make amends with. And their receptivity to that and their unwillingness to hold my sin against me was just such a beautiful picture of the fact that God refuses to hold our sins or count our sins against us. So that's what it looked like most. And for that, like I said, I'm incredibly grateful. I know that is not the case for a lot of guys that I know. In fact, they have a real hard time with forgiveness because nobody that they hurt has forgiven them, especially primary people. And the fact that three primary people in my life not only forgave me, but didn't change in their approach to me or their love for me is a freaking gift. It's a gift.
What about forgiveness for yourself?
I don't believe in that. And here's the reason why. I think we throw that around, and the reason I don't believe it is because I think it hurts in the end. I don't think my biggest problem back then was my need to pat myself on the back and say everything's going to be okay. I think my biggest problem back then was believing that I was actually already fully and finally forgiven by God. In other words, it was a struggle with unbelief.
Yes.
Which
yes.
I think is always the case. It's not so much that, okay, well, I know God has forgiven you, but now you need to forgive yourself. I'm like, dude, I can't do that. I don't even know what that means. What I know will ultimately help me is believing increasingly that the sins I can't forget, God doesn't even remember.
Yes.
Believing that functionally, that will set me free.
Yes.
Going to myself, which is the worst place to go for forgiveness, I'm like, I'll go to someone a little bigger, someone a little stronger.
I'm with you there. I think I was looking at it as far as like feeling guilt, shame, what that feels like. And then how were you battling with that? What did that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, the struggle of life, as far as I'm concerned, is the struggle to believe that we are unconditionally loved and forever forgiven by a God who delights in us.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to believe that. We live in a conditional world with conditional people.
Yeah.
We are conditional people. Everything has strings attached.
Yeah.
There are no strings attached to God's love. He loves us because he loves us, period. He doesn't love us because we're good. He doesn't love us because we're clean. He doesn't love us because we're right. He loves us because he loves us, period. And his love toward us is unconditional. So that just doesn't register in our minds, in our heads. And we go through the rest of our lives struggling to believe that. It's like, the father in the story that Jesus tells about the dying daughter, and Jesus asks the dad, "Do you believe I can heal her?" And his answer is, "I believe, help my unbelief." That's my life. That's my inner life. That's my prayer life. I believe, help my unbelief. That's the struggle. And so I think, for me, struggling to believe the truth that God does not count my sins against me.
Yeah.
That I think about my sin a hell of a lot more than God thinks about my sin. The struggle to believe that is what that looked like for me and continues to look like for me. I think that the gospel, which is the good news of God's one-way love to broken down sinners like me, the gospel is not just the ABCs of our faith, it's the A to Z of the faith. And once God saves us, we don't move beyond the gospel, we move more deeply into the gospel. And it's a lifelong process of believing the gospel to be true, which is you are forgiven, you are loved, you are fully seen, fully loved, you are fully known and fully loved, that I delight in you. I put something up on social media not the other day, this is probably a year ago now. I was telling this story the other day. And I put something up on social media just as a gauge to test what people really believe about God's love.
Yeah, it's good.
I like to stir the pot. I'm a real troublemaker.
Yeah.
And I said something like, God doesn't love you any more when you're volunteering in the nursery at the church, and he doesn't love you any less when you're lying in bed with your adulterous lover.
Oh,
Well,
that was a good one.
people went apeshit because they were like, how can you say? I was like, look, I'm not saying one is good, both are good.
Yeah.
I'm saying as it pertains to God, the way God sees us, the way God relates to us, God's love toward us, it is unaffected by what we do or fail to do. Unaffected. There is nothing we do that is sinful enough to deter God from loving us or accepting us or approving of us. Now, the horizontal consequences of those choices are vastly different. Okay.
Yes.
You volunteer in the nursery and you don't cheat on your wife, life's going to go smoother for you. Okay.
Yes.
So, the horizontal consequences of decisions matter. But as it pertains to the way God views us, the way God feels about us, God's commitment to us, God's devotion to us, our sin cannot disrupt that for a millisecond.
Yeah. That's powerful, dude. Because
believing that is a struggle.
Yes, because for you to say that God isn't smashing you on this sin, then why are you?
Right. Yeah.
Then why are you?
Yeah.
Why are you?
And I think what we do, at least what I did, is I at the time I'm living in the throes of my horizontal consequences.
Yeah.
And I'm suffering the consequences of the decisions that I made. Marriage is broken, divorce happens, kids' lives are altered, friends lost, opportunities lost, money drained, all that stuff. I'm living in it. And it's very easy when you're living in that kind of thing to just start believing like, well, this is just who I am. This is all that I am. This is all that I am. I am a failed dad. I'm a failed husband. I'm a failed pastor. I'm a failed leader. I'm a failure. That's all I am. And the only thing that has the power to combat that inner prosecuting attorney that all of us have is the power of the gospel, which is the truth that because of what Jesus has done for us, we are in with God forever, that nothing we do or fail to do can cause God to blink or bail or flinch or flee, that nothing we do or fail to do can cause God to leave us or forsake us. He doesn't want to leave us or forsake us. God is not mad at you. All of that stuff, man, I mean, that is the only thing. Not only is that the primary source of real freedom, but that is the only truth that helped me get through those dark days. It was almost like, man, everybody left.
Yeah.
God stuck.
Yeah.
God stayed. God's friendship was proven to be true. All of God's promises to me were proven to be true when I was on the bathroom floor, period. And as a result, that relationship was enhanced.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of the same things, man. It's like, and I know a lot of dads hearing this. What I love about this community, and I think you would love this as well, is that most of the guys, if it was a scale of 1 to 10, faith levels, it's more like maybe a 1.5. But they're very interested now. There's a very much of an awakening of like, shoot, maybe I missed it or back in the day and I skipped it. And there's just a lot of guys that are looking for just something super simple. So when you share that, that's the big thing. The second thing I would say on that is that I was in a similar scenario as well. And you think that all these people are going to be there and they're not. And so then you start freaking out. And I'm like, all these people that I was helping, and for you having a huge congregation and having all of this influence, and then all of a sudden nobody is showing up, and you're wondering like, God, where is everybody? And I know for me, it was also very, it was crazy because I just had to also just let that go for me and forgive those individuals that I was like, I was holding on to, expecting something in return. So what did that feel like for you, brother? I mean, you were at, like I said, maxed out.
Yeah, man. My sin was the thing that sort of lit the fuse.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the only one who sinned in the whole scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was guilty of something during
Yeah.
that period.
Yeah.
Even if it was being guilty of just sort of dropping me off at the side of the road for the
Yeah.
garbage man to pick me up. I mean, people were there. There were people whose friendships were proven not to be true, not to be sincere, not to be legitimate. People who I felt used by. As long as
Totally.
you were benefiting from being around me, you were my friend. And now that you don't benefit from being around me, you're turning your back and you're running away. And like, so did I ever matter to you? So I had a lot of people that I had to forgive also. And to be honest with you, writing my last book, which was entitled Carnage and Grace, which is my memoir of this whole season in my life, writing the book itself and having to revisit those darkest moments in my life and that long, dark season in my life was really the catalyst that God used to help me forgive some of these people. Because I started to realize, dude, nobody responds well when a bomb goes off. Nobody.
No, nobody.
Okay? Family doesn't respond well. Friends don't respond well. Enemies don't respond well.
Yeah.
Nobody responds well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shit show. I mean, to think that you can count on anybody, or more importantly, everybody, to respond to your crisis in a wise and measured and loving way is an exercise in high anthropology, which is a fancy phrase for expecting from ourselves and others what is unrealistic to expect. And I just, I was able to sort of see that all of those people who I was struggling to forgive, they had their own issues. They had their own fears and insecurities that they were dealing with. They had their own stuff that they were dealing with. And I found that reflecting on that and writing about that years later really was a massive catalyst to my own healing. And some of those people I'll never see again. I won't have the opportunity to talk to them and say, I forgive you, or, or whatever, or to say even I'm sorry to. But in my heart, not holding those grudges anymore. Now there's still a couple
bro.
That are triggering to me. For some specific reasons. But for the most part, man, I'm just like, dude, we are broken people living in a broken world with other broken people. I just operate with the mentality where I expect fallen people to fall down. I expect broken people to break things, and I expect sinners to sin. So when someone breaks something or falls down or sins against me or anybody else, I'm kind of like, I get it. I wasn't always at that, but now I'm like, I get it, dude. I'm jacked up too, man. I can be a real dick as a friend too. I'm not as loyal as I should be. I'm not as faithful as I should be. I'm not as nice as I should be. I'm more selfish than I want to admit. I get it. I get it. Once you've been to the bottom of yourself and you realize, so this is the human condition. Okay. And it plagues us all. Okay. So my expectations for myself and other people have been significantly reduced at a level that I think is very healthy and a level that corresponds to reality.
That's good. Let me pause here for a second. First and foremost, Fragments of Freedom.com is the place where you're going to get Tullian's book. We're going to talk more here in a second about exactly some of these things that he's talking about, how the book is written, in particular, a story that I read that was absolutely laser beam for every divorced dad that you're going to want to hear this. Again, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, subscribe or drop a comment. I want to get as many as I can in here about what you've heard, what you need help with, what the struggle is, and also with Tullian stuff. Get everything he has immediately. It's a guy that is not just bleeding, growing through it, walking in it, and someone that I think that you could really actually learn from in this scenario. So let me jump into this book, Fragments of Freedom, man, because there's something that I read. I'm going to read it, and then I want to unpack this with you because this is like a laser beam to every single dad watching here. So it starts out, it's fragment 19, and in the book, you've, I think, created 62 fragments. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very dire, it's a very vulnerable diary-like read.
Yes. Yeah, it's dope how it reads. I'll read this one, and then we'll sort of unravel a little bit because I think it'll be really cool because Tullian's here, so we can kind of pick on his mind a bit. So it starts out with, so why the hell am I freaking out? He says, a close friend of mine is in the middle of a brutal season. After decades of marriage, a decade of marriage, his relationship is officially ending. On Monday, he got the final notice for the divorce hearing. The day he'd been waiting for, the day he thought would bring relief, is finally here. So why the hell am I freaking out? He said. It's been dark, man, really dark. He expected the grief and sadness that made sense, but he wasn't prepared for the loneliness, the shame spiral, the self-destruction. I told him, been there, felt that, my brother. I get it. It's messy, heartbreaking, and confusing. He says, but also completely human. So keep being honest with yourself. Don't bury it. Let it out. Better out than in. I'm here for all of it. This quote here is something that is going to spin your brain in a good way. Tullian says, transparency is telling the truth about where you've been. Vulnerability is telling it the truth about where you are. I want to start with that quote, dude, because that's a brain bomb.
Yeah, there is a distinction between transparency and vulnerability. I think sometimes we can get those two things confused, or we treat them as synonymous. Transparency, here's what I'll say. Transparency is typically welcomed in religious settings. Vulnerability is rarely welcomed in religious settings. And what I mean by that, transparency is me telling you about everything that took place in 2015 and 16 and how I nuked my life and blew everything up and, blah, blah, blah.
We love that. We love that.
We love that. We give those people microphones and book deals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Vulnerability takes it a step further. And if, as I say, transparency is telling the truth about your past, vulnerability is telling the truth about your present. When you're being vulnerable, you're not talking about past struggles, past sins. You're talking about present struggles, present sins, things that you are wrestling with now, that you're afraid to share with people because you've already faced enough rejection and you don't want to face any more. And if you're scared shitless that if you tell the truth about yourself, the very few people that are left are going to stick around. That is an important. I was having a conversation with a guy who works for me, and he too is in recovery. And we were talking about that, and he said something along those lines that he read that somewhere. And I'm like, hold on, say that again. I'm going to take some of those words and now I'm going to go tinker with it and turn it into something that is so easily sort of contrasted and compared that it lands with people. And I think that's really, really important. Here's what I discovered in church is that transparency is safe. What I discovered in recovery is that vulnerability is safe.
100.
And those are two totally different contexts. I think the church and religious circles have a hell of a lot to learn from the recovery community. It was the recovery community and not the church that saved my life.
Yeah.
That was the community that surrounded me.
What was that like when you first started to do that, bro? That must have melted your mind.
Yeah, dude. So my contention is that when people think of recovery, they typically think of people who are recovering from conventional addictions like alcohol or drugs or sex or food or whatever. Okay. I didn't suffer from those conventional addictions other than, my love of nicotine. Which is really not a life altering kind of thing, but I was never an alcoholic. I was never a drug addict. I was never a sex addict. That wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
But I was at rock bottom and I kept bumping into other people at rock bottom. And one of the things that all of these people had in common was that they were in recovery for something.
Mm-hmm.
And it dawned on me that you don't have to be a recovering drug addict or alcoholic or sex addict to be in recovery. If you are a human being, you are in recovery. You're in recovery from life. You're in recovery from traumas. You're in recovery from childhood issues. You're in recovery from your fears and your insecurities and the rejections that you've experienced over the course of your life. You're in recovery from the propensity to edit yourself and to edit
Mm.
your story and to put your best foot forward. You're in recovery from that. And so as I was bumping into these people who were in active recovery for alcohol abuse and drug addiction, I was like, dude, I have more in common with these people than I do any of the religious people that I've ever known.
Yeah.
They know what rock bottom feels like. So I found myself going to recovery groups, recovery places, recovery centers, and just sitting in these circles with these people, men and women,
Yeah.
who were so honest about where they were,
Yeah.
and were so honest about what they had done, and were so honest about their own desperation and their need for help now, that I remember sitting there going, dude, I've never heard this level of honesty in any church setting I have ever been in my life. I've never heard a preacher be this honest. I've never heard a congregant be this honest. I've never heard anybody be as honest as this. And I immediately knew, like, dude, these are my people. First of all, I felt less alone.
Yeah.
I felt like in the church world, my story was this big scandal. In these people's world, it was a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like what, dude? That's it? That's all you got, you know? And so I felt like less of a pariah around these people. I felt like less of an outcast around these people. I felt like I belonged to them.
Yeah.
They belonged to me. These are my people. And that started me on this journey of learning everything I can possibly learn from the recovery community, recognizing that I am a part of the recovery community. So I say all the time, there are two kinds of people in this world: people in recovery who know that they are, and people in recovery who think that they're not. But there is no one who's not recovering from something. So that the recovery world is what saved my life. And in terms of transparency, like I said, religious world celebrates that stuff. Scary as hell to be vulnerable in a religious setting. In a recovery setting, you can't get away with not being vulnerable.
Yeah.
They can sniff that stuff out a mile away, dude. They can sniff out the games. They can sniff out the gamesmanship and the facade and the masks and all that stuff. They can see it a mile away. And our church here in Jupiter, the sanctuary, is very, very much built on that recovery model for those particular reasons. Old, young, red, yellow, black, white, rich, poor, you name it. They all show up, and it's been beautiful to watch a culture of vulnerability get established, not just a culture of transparency.
Yeah, I mean, and as well, any of you guys listening, you're in the Jupiter area, I'd highly encourage you to, first of all, go there and check out Tullian, and also all the other things that they're doing, especially in the recovery zone for that. Because again, like you said, dude, like going back to you, when you first were vulnerable to that definition in that setting, what did that feel like for you?
Relieving, like massively relieving. I just felt like a weight. I felt like I never wanted to be around people not like this again.
Yeah.
Like I felt safe.
Yeah.
Very safe. I felt seen, I felt safe, and I felt relieved.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's what my wife and I call the real Me Too movement, which is you share your secrets and your struggles with someone and they look at you and go, me too, dude. My circumstances may be different. My vices may be different, but I get it, man. I know what it feels like to be at rock bottom. I know what it feels like to be hidden and to be secretive and to deal with the guilt and shame and regret of all that. That's what it felt like. It felt like I found my people. I felt seen. I felt loved, embraced, and mostly I just felt relieved. Like, okay, I'm not being judged. I can tell these people anything and they are not going to judge me.
Yeah, that's good. I want to throw something here from the book at you, and just for these dads that are listening as well, to sort of lean into them. Because you said this freedom thing. You said freedom doesn't arrive finished. It shows up in fragments. For a divorced dad who wants to feel like himself again and doesn't know when that happens, what does he do with that?
Well, that's the point. It kind of shows up unexpectedly. It shows up without our permission. It's like you wake up one day and you realize I'm not as scared as I was yesterday. Or you hear a song, or you watch a scene in a movie. You're watching a movie and the scene pops up, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, something happens. And you see yourself and your situation in a little bit of a different light. Something infuses hope, just
Yeah.
a glimmer of hope into a dark spot. The kindness of somebody else, a text that comes in from an unexpected person, an invitation to dinner by your neighbor after you just moved in, or whatever. I mean, that is the way God winks at us.
Yeah.
He winks at us through very unexpected places. Religion tells us where we need to go to find God, and grace tells us where God goes to find us. And he finds us in unexpected places, and he finds us through unexpected people. I mean, the way God has winked at me through, gosh, Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
Depeche Mode,
The Cure. The
The
Cure,
Cure,
bro.
yes, The Cure, yes, love The Cure. Just the way God has winked at me through a note. David Gilmour, who's the guitarist for Pink Floyd, he's not the most technically proficient guitarist, but he's the best in my opinion. He will hit a note in a song, and it's like a flood of freedom comes into my veins. And I'm feeling really down and dirty today. I didn't expect that note from comfortably numb to make me feel relieved. And yet here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, a scene from a movie that's happened to me a bunch where something just hits. A conversation with someone that I didn't expect, and a conversation maybe with someone that I did know or that I do know, but they say something that almost sounds like a throwaway phrase to them. But to me, it's like, oh my gosh, that is life. So, I think the hardest thing for men to do when their lives are broken is to not rally immediately and try to fix it. That is a massive temptation. And it's also a massive mistake. I'm a fixer. We typically are. I'm a mover and a shaker, and if something's broken, I can figure out a way to fix it and get it back right. And nothing I was doing was working. It was almost as if God was saying, "This is all going to happen on my timeline, not yours, and there's a reason for it. I am on a mission to set you free." Free from things that you know about, that you know you need to be free from, and free from a whole hell of a lot of things that you don't even know you need to be freed from. So, like Paul's all said to me, stick with that.
Yeah. That's good.
It's almost like do nothing is healthier than doing something. God knows what you need.
Yeah.
He knows when you need it.
Yeah.
He knows. Better than your friends, better than your family, better than yourself. God knows what you need, and he knows when you need it. Wait on him. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he is on a mission to set you free. He will set you free, and it will come in spurts and moments, in fragments. It will come. It will show up in fragments, typically, like I said, from unexpected places and unexpected people. And then you'll look back in a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and go, oh my gosh, I was being set free from a lot of things I didn't even know I needed to be set free from. And here I am. Life feels okay again.
Yeah. There's a dad in our community. He, due to the courts and some filings, and he hasn't been able to see his children in 7 or 8 months now. And him and I have been working together. And part of the work, and this is a guy like you or me, high level. He's a doer. And we're a few months together now, and he's on progress to be able to see his kids now. And he took a step back and he said, I would have never guessed that not being able to see my children would bring me these types of things that I actually needed to be able to get my life arranged and my mind arranged and all of these things. So my children didn't see it in real time. And it was just vomited on them and their life. And he said, it's been such a grace to be able to do this without having all of their involvement at the moment. And the same thing, like what you're saying is, there's those moments. I'm not saying that you're going to like them and they're going to be great, but there's also this being able to suffer correctly with and learning in that moment and place and this is for the doers, the guys that don't do anything. Usually they need to do something. It's usually the opposite of what you normally do. And so when you say that, that's a lot of the stuff that I hear, and a lot of these dads as well, that there's a lot of things sometimes when it is just doing the things you need to do with yourself and now. And I think for me, the question I had is I was looking through your book and looking through the different the different fragments that you had. What did you learn writing this book, dude?
That life is hard and good and fun and sad and beautiful and ugly and unpredictable. Um, I titled it Fragments of Freedom, and the subtitle is Bits and Pieces of a Life Unchained. And it really is organized in 62 unconnected diary-like entries. People like an album. That's the way I designed it. More
Yeah.
like a concept album made up of a bunch of singles that tell one story. But you can skip around. You don't have to start at the beginning and go to the end. You can skip around. Some might, even in religious circles, might call it devotional-like. Although I steer clear from that language because that's not what this is. It is much more of a diary than it is a dissertation. But I just wanted to say, I wanted to just write whatever I wanted to write about whatever I was feeling, whatever I was thinking, and not put any limits whatsoever on what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And I learned in the process of writing it, this is in essence what life is supposed to feel like. We spend so much time curating, managing, we spend so much time editing. We spend so much time putting our best foot forward and hiding. And I'm like, dude, real freedom. And by real freedom, I'm not talking about being unnecessarily offensive. Like, this is just who I am, and you're just going to have to suck it up and take it. That's not freedom. That's slavery to a different kind of image. But real freedom to go, a lot of the rules they told us we needed to live by in religious settings, like listen to this kind of music, don't watch this, don't hang out with those people, you'll never learn from these things over here, you can only learn from these people and these things over here. A lot of that stuff I've learned over the years is just not true. And some of the things that I write about, like going to these electronic music festivals in Miami with my kids and, dancing till 3 a.m. and, struggling to get up the next morning because we've been out so late. I'm like, dude, some of those moments I've seen and felt God in those places and in those moments so much more than I have in typical church settings sometimes. And so I wanted rather than to explain freedom, I wanted people to experience it by what I shared about my own life.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I went to a show with my daughter. That's the whole entry,
Yeah.
and a little reflection on how meaningful it was for her and I to be together and enjoying that time. Or, I talk about just the hilarity of Seinfeld. Still, to me, I talk a lot about music in there and just reflections on songs, all kinds of songs, movies, and just different things that make up my life. Things that I felt free to talk about, the things that I enjoy, the passions that I have, the struggles that I have, the fears that I have, the insecurities that I have, just to sort of put it out there in bite-sized chunks. And the primary thing I learned was, man, that's fun.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's fun when you can just, I was telling somebody yesterday, when and your life is built on the fact that you are unconditionally loved by God, and you can't do anything about it. That's just a fact. Regardless of whether or not you feel it, that is a fact. When you really know that you are unconditionally loved by God, what other people think of you starts to matter less and less. It's like you don't need, when you're loved by God, you don't need to be liked by everybody else. And when other people's approval loses the weight, so to speak, you start to live a little bit more unedited. I'm not. If I tell you something about me or share something with you and you walk away from me, I may not like it, but I'll be okay because God will never walk away from me.
Yeah.
That helps people live more honestly. It helps people live more truthfully. It helps people live more uneditedly. And that's the free life,
Yeah.
just sort of being who you are, warts and all, loving other people by restraining yourself at times and giving yourself at other times, enjoying what you enjoy. God made you, He gave you the likes and dislikes and tastes that you have. Nothing's off limits in that regard in terms of creation. Nothing's off limits. You can enjoy this kind of music or that kind of music or these movies or these kinds of people or whatever. Freedom is a massively missing component in religious circles. And any of us who grew up in religious circles were in one sense taught to fear freedom. Being free doesn't mean you're free to do whatever you want. It means you're free to do whatever you ought. Like crap like that. I'm like, no, it kind of means I'm free to do whatever I want. That doesn't mean I'm free from the consequences of doing anything I want, but I am actually free to do whatever I want. And you learn wisdom along the way. Okay, when I do this, this happens. Not going to do that anymore. When I'm going to do this, this happens. I should probably keep doing that. But man, freedom is a massively missing component inside the church. The church fears it. The religious circles fear it. And it's what God is on a mission to do. It's what Jesus says in Luke. I have come to set the captives free. That's his personal mission statement.
Yeah.
And that freedom is big and it's large and it's magical and it's beautiful. And accepting that freedom is a massive obstacle. But when you do, geez, dude, the lights come back on.
Yeah, it's good. I got two questions for you. The first one, because you just touched on it for a second. How would you define wisdom?
The opposite of foolishness. I'm just that's my placeholder answer while I try to figure out how to answer your question. I would say knowledge would be kind of knowing what to do, and wisdom would maybe be knowing how to do it. I'm not sure I even agree with that, because there is a sense in which wisdom is also a knowing what you need to do. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's wisdom would be maybe applying in real life what you know to be true and right.
That's great.
Not just categorizing it in your head or deciphering it in your brain, but actually putting it into practice.
Yeah.
We all know the difference functionally between wisdom and foolishness, even if we all have different definitions for those things. We know that doing things this way rather than doing things that way is wise.
Yeah.
If you do it this way, it's pretty foolish. If you do it this way, it's wise. So I would say, if I were to give a definition for it, I think it would be knowing how to apply what you know to be right and true in life.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Yeah.
Horizontally speaking.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I like that. It's just helpful too, as a lot of times guys read, they're reading their Bible, they're trying to figure that out. It's big words, and it's always good to just kind of simplify, which is, I want to throw this your way. There's some dads that are listening here, and there's probably a dad listening now who's in the darkest season of his life. He's probably lost his kids' respect. He's probably lost on his own. He's not sure there's anything on the other side, kind of like what, we had talked about before. What would you say to him as a man who's been exactly in that spot?
I would say it's okay that you're not going to listen to what I have to say, because when you're in that kind of spot, it doesn't matter what anybody says. it's really hard to believe anything that even sounds like good news or hopeful news. So I would begin by saying, look, this is not the end of your life. You will be happy again. You will feel whole again. You will feel excited about life again, not without scars, but you won't always feel the way you're feeling now. Life won't always feel the way it's feeling now. And if you struggle to believe what I'm saying is true, that's okay. Totally fine, dude. It's fine for you to doubt that hope is on the horizon. It's okay for you to question whether you will ever be happy again. It's okay. You're in a dark spot. You're in a low spot. I've been in that dark spot. I've been in that low spot. People tried to encourage me by giving me words of hope, and I appreciate that. But I wasn't hearing it at that point. I was too blacked out at that point by my own hopelessness. And I would just want to say, it's okay. I think with people like that, I find that saying less is way better than saying more. Reminding people like that, if you're on the other side of that and you've got a friend who's in that situation, don't try to fix him. Just be, I say this all the time. Job's 3 friends were great counselors until they opened their mouths.
Yeah.
When they just sat on the ground with him and wept with him and listened to him, that's when they were great counselors. And I think we are all so uncomfortable with brokenness that even when a friend or a family member comes to us and they're broken, we want to fix it as much for us as for them.
Yeah.
And I would just say, it's not going to be like this forever, man, but it's okay that you don't believe me.
Yeah.
God knows what he's doing, and it's okay that you don't believe that. If you want to cuss at God, scream at God, spit at God, that's okay. He can handle it. Like I said in the fragment there that you read, better out than in. Just get it out. It's okay to feel everything that you're feeling. You don't need to edit your emotional life as you go through this. It's okay. And then, of course, just sort of hopefully people like that have other people in their lives, at least one person that is just willing to listen.
Yeah.
Not to try to solve problems or to fix anything, just to listen and weep with those who weep. I find myself doing that a lot more these days. As a young pastor, I counseled a lot more with my words. And now I find myself counseling a lot more with my tears. I find that's what people need more than anything.
That's good, dude. It's real, man. And dude, I'm just I'm appreciative of you, appreciative of your time. I'm grateful. I just want to acknowledge you just for sharing, the blood and the story, because there's dads on the other side of this. You didn't clean it up. It's all here. You got this book coming out, Fragments of Freedom. I believe it's June 2nd. Those of you guys listening, pre-order it now. Grab one before they get out and start putting that book to work. I think it's going to be a beautiful piece. That's something that you can actually read through, go through, reflect on. The link is going to be in the show notes. Where else, man, can people find you? Where else? What else can they get you from?
Yeah, they can. I'm looking at my social media handles now because I get confused by which one's which. I think Instagram is at Tullian Tch, and I'm very active on social media. I respond to as many people as I can.
Yeah.
All of the posts I make, all of the responses to private messages I make. Instagram is Tullian Tch, and then let's see. I think Facebook is Tullian T. I think that's what it is. Tullian T on Facebook. So, yeah, they can find me there. The Sanctuary Jupiter's YouTube channel has all of my messages on there. Some interviews, messages, that sort of stuff. They can find the book at fragmentsbook.com. Fragmentsbook.com. They can find it anywhere books are sold. But if they go to fragmentsbook.com, it's a specifically designed website for the book, and they can really get a sense and a taste of what we're talking about here. It's way more of an immersive experience than it is a book. It's not a chapter book, a typical chapter book. It includes musical playlists and graphics and pictures and all sorts of interactive kinds of things. It's designed beautifully, and I'm really proud of it. And you can get a sense of what that means by going to fragmentsbook.com before you even buy it. Like, just go, I don't know if I want this thing. You can read some excerpts there and kind of get a sense for the feel of the book. I'm really excited about it. I'm very excited about it. This is my 9th book, and I'm more excited about this project than I am about anything else I've done. So
I love it. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, go follow him. Grab the book. If this episode hits you somewhere, again, Apple and Spotify, give it a follow and a sub. Drop a comment. Let me know which part hit you the most. Especially, I love reading them. I love being able to help as many guys as I can. Share it with a dad today. Maybe they're a little bit worse off than you. The community is being built for men exactly like you, the men exactly like Tullian. Keep building, and I'll see you guys on the next one. God bless you.